The Adventure of Bertram, Sanderson-Dalby and the Chiswick Bakery Murder. It was in the winter of 1875 when I first chanced to meet the renowned investigator and then only Inspector Bertram Sanderson-Dalby, later to become known to me as the Psychic Detective. He'd already begun making a name for himself within the London constabulary as a man with an almost frightening knack for getting inside the criminal mind and unravelling even the most complex of crimes, sometimes within mere minutes of arriving on the scene. I was only a young sergeant back then, recently arrived in London, when I found myself investigating one of the most singular crimes I'd ever heard tell of. Well, Mr. Beckley, this appears to be the scene of one of the most singular crimes I've ever heard tell of, and no mistake.
Oh, no, Gov. No crime here. No, I swears, Gov, on me life, she was like that when I got here.
Now, Beckley, are you seriously trying to tell me that your wife, whom the whole neighbourhood knows you didn't like very much, just up this morning and decapitated herself while opening the shop?
Well, it's a bloody dangerous business we operate, Sergeant.
But you're a baker, Beckley, and there's certainly no reason I can fathom for having the shop's entire arsenal of unnecessarily sharp bread knives balanced precariously above the door like that. Something gruesome was bound to happen, and I imagine you knew it would happen to your wife.
Well, I think gruesome's a bit of an exaggeration, isn't it, Gov?
Her head bounced out the door, Beckley.
Oh, who told you that?
Old Mrs. Soames said it rolled past her as she was eyeing off a seated loaf in your window.
Well then, Sergeant, I'm sure she noted my expression of pained disbelief.
She said you were laughing.
I'm telling you, Gov, I was as surprised as anyone.
But that's just it, Beckley. Nobody's surprised. Everyone here around these parts knows you had it in for your wife. Oh, if only there was some way I could prove it. If only there was some way I could see inside your head and figure out how you managed it.
Good morning, Sergeant. I understand you might be in need of my services.
Bertram Sanderson-Dalby! Well, I never. Silhouetted in the door was the tall, angular frame of the famous detective. His eyes sparkled as they darted about the shop, almost as if he were watching the morning's events unfolding right in front of him.
Well, Sergeant, I take it that this flour-dusted gentleman is the baker, Beckley.
Why, yes it is, sir. How on earth did you know that?
There are only 3 of us here, Sergeant.
By Jove, sir, you're right. Uncanny.
Yes. Well, it would appear to be an open and shut case. Such a complex sequence of events, the unfortunate placement of the box of uncommonly sharp bread knives, the decidedly heavy bag of flour perched precariously at the opposite end of the rickety shelf, which appears to have given way once the door was opened, resulting in a trebuchet-like propulsion of sharpened steel through the air and clean through the neck of the deceased Mrs. Beckley. All of this could hardly be the contrivance of an honest, hard-working chap such as the baker here.
Well, as you say, sir.
Indeed, Mr. Beckley, it would appear that your alibi is ironclad, as the saying goes.
Well, when a man of standing, such as yourself...
But surely, sir...
But, Mr. Beckley, I don't imagine for a second you expected to run afoul of Bertram Sanderson-Dalby. You may well have heard of me, sir.
Oh, this is terribly exciting.
Of course I have, sir, and in my shop, no less. I expect you thought that contriving such an elaborate mechanism of murder would ensure that you'd never be found out.
Well, no, sir, but I could never have expected to have my handiwork investigated by the famed Bertram Sanderson-Dalby. And now that you're here, sir, truth be told, I'm ever so embarrassed.
Well, quite. But
I just didn't have a lot of confidence in the mechanism myself, sir, and after a couple of dry runs with a dummy I'd fashioned largely out of last week's stale rolls, the best I could manage was to get one of the bread knives about an inch into the big loaf of dark rye I employed as a sort of surrogate head.
Well, I'm sure that would have...
And I hardly need to tell you, sir, that it would require significantly greater penetration of the skull to kill a woman outright.
Now, look here, my good man, I realise you're trying to be helpful, but... And what with my Gina being quite a bit thicker than the normal bird, sir, well, it was back to the old drawing board, as they say.
Now look here. So I thought it'd be best for all concerned if I was to saw her head off in the kitchen prior to triggering the mechanism, thus guaranteeing a successful decapitation.
You do realise you're rather pissing on my parade here, don't you?
What, me, Squire? No. I just wanted to make absolutely sure you didn't miss any of the more subtle details.
Well, I shan't, shall I? I barely even got started yet.
Course you would, Gov, course you would. But honestly, I don't think even you'd have been able to figure out how I got her from the kitchen to the front door without her head falling off.
I'm a detective of unparalleled renown, man. Of course I was going to figure it out.
Well, you did seem to be taking your time a bit there, sir.
Oh, fuck the pair of you. Cool, and he spotted that I was a baker and all, without the slightest bit of prompting. It clearly says Beckley's Bakery on your fucking sign, man. It's hardly a tremendous leap to surmise
Good
that...
lord, there's a sign out the front?
Oh, I can scarcely fucking believe how ridiculous and pig-ignorant you suckers. Here, am I going to be famous now, Sarge?
Well, Beckley, all I can say is it's a good thing you're a dab hand at murder, because your seeded loaf tastes of hot piss.
Oh, go on with you, Sergeant. Oh.
And that wasn't the last time I chanced to see the famous detective in action. Indeed, we were to go on to tackle a great many other cases in the course of our long association. But those tales will have to wait for another time. I hope you'll join me again for more adventures in the life of Bertram Sanderson-Dalby, the psychic detective. That was the adventure of Bertram Sanderson-Dalby and the Chiswick Bakery murder. Written and performed by old Shrimpeyes.